Scarlet and Violet 151 prices are seeing insane growth at the moment across a lot of the top cards and products, with the Charizard SIR PSA 10 doubling in price in a short span of time. But what does this mean for prices long term, and what do these jumps tell us about investing in Pokemon cards? Well, that's what I'm going to try to explore in today's video. Let's get straight into it. Hey guys, it's Pokemonster here, back with another video. I just couldn't ignore the recent price jumps in Pokemon 151 cards, especially that Charizard SIR. So I'm going to structure today's video in two main bits. The first one, which I hope will be pretty quick, is to run through some of the selected recent price jumps, and the more important part is to give you my thoughts about what this tells us about investing in Pokemon cards as a whole. So the first thing that we have to look at obviously is going to be the Charizard EX SIR, which has jumped 66% in price. Now if you look at the recent price trend over the last 3 months, I'm just going to change that to 1 month because that's where we see where the insane growth happened. It's literally just happened in the last 2 weeks or so, and overnight pretty much the price on TCG Player went from about 160 bucks to a peak of 220 bucks. As you can see, it has fallen down a bit and corrected a little bit, but that's an insane price jump, and as you can see from the volume of sales, there are a lot of sales happening at this point in time. So this is probably the card that's seen the most growth, or that's been the most covered. I also just wanted to quickly touch on some of the other cards. First, we got the Charmander illustration rare. As you see, the chart is looking very appealing for anyone that's having this card at the moment, jumping from a low of about 39 bucks to 48 bucks, so a pretty big jump in percentage terms. I think where we are going to see the biggest growth is actually in PSA 10 prices, which I'm excited to show you guys in a little bit. Now just before I get into the rest of the video, do let me know if you are actually buying or selling these cards at the moment. I'd love to hear from you guys. I don't really own any of these English 151 cards, but if you do, let me know what you're planning on doing with them. Now there is one more product that I want to show you guys because it is going to be the subject of another video from me, hopefully next week, but the Pokemon Center version of the 151 ETB has been showing a lot of strength. So if you look around the end of September, it was about 146 bucks, but alongside with the recent price jumps for the Charizard, for some of the illustration rares, you can see that the price is currently still going up at about $220. Now let's take a quick look at these products on the UK market and in graded format. So starting off with the Charizard SIR, as you can see, this is absolutely insane. So I've got British pounds here, 584 pounds, which is going to be around 750 bucks, 540. The really interesting thing to note here is that these are very liquid at the moment, so they're selling super fast, as you can see from the new listing sign. So they're selling very quickly. There's clearly a lot of hype. As you can see, this Charizard has actually overtaken the Greninja SIR from Twilight Masquerade. But the really interesting that I want to show you guys is you can see that as of 17th of October, that's what it looks like. So if I scroll down to sold listings just a week ago, you can see the prices are much lower. What I was showing you above was like 650, 550 pounds. Here we have 386, 413. If I keep going down, it was about 300 to 350 pounds, and it's now like 550, 650. So it's not an entire doubling, but it's close to doubling. And it does really beg the question of what is the actual reason as to why this has happened. Is it just someone that's trying to manipulate the market and everybody else is catching on? With the volume of sales, I'm not sure if that can be proven. As you can see on my screen, there is a pretty high volume of sales for this card. Now, if we look at the Charmander illustration rare in PSA 10, it is fetching a whopping 300 pounds, which is going to be around 420 to 450 US dollars. Crazy prices for illustration rares. Let me know what you guys think about illustration rares in general. To me, I obviously treat them as Japanese ARs, even though I know they are much harder to grade. One sold for 400 pounds, so that will be around 550 US dollars. So these are some insane prices for illustration rares, especially when you consider that the Blastoise SAR and Venusaur SAR from the same set in a PSA 10 is going to be less than that. As you can see here, the Blastoise SIR in a PSA 10 is actually selling for less than the IR Charmander. So very interesting pattern to note there. And the last thing I want to show you is obviously the Pokemon Center Elite Trainer boxes. As you guys can see, a really liquid product selling for £129 here in the UK, which is going to be around 160, 170 US dollars. Really high solds when you consider the fact that a lot of this growth has happened in the space of about 2 weeks. If I scroll to last week, it was selling for about £100. All I know is before the reprint, it was selling for about £150. So this is still within that range. But that's enough about talking about the price trends, because you guys have seen plenty of other YouTubers covering that. What I'm really interested in discussing with you guys is what this shows about the Pokemon hobby and investing in Pokemon cards. Okay, so the number one thing that I want to draw a parallel with and what we can learn from the 151 price boom is it seems like the set that people decide is the best set of the era has huge potential for upswings. What I mean by that is if you look at Evolving Skies and the prices that an Evolving Skies booster box is hitting, it's close to $800. Compare that to the second best English Sword and Shield set, which I would imagine is between Chilling Reign and Lost Origin. They are nowhere near that. But the king of each era seems to be the one that has the most potential for a lot of uplift in values, which I think is part of the reason why we're seeing the Charizard SIR, the Charmander SIR, that Blastoise SIR PSA 10, all fetching pretty high 3-figure sums. And I do think that the top set of an era does get that much extra love and attention. Obviously, this has not been helped by the supply situation. It just feels like the demand for 151 is so high at the moment. There have been some restocks in booster bundles, but it just seems that the demand is so strong at the moment, especially in light of the fact that 2024 has seen a few English sets that maybe were not strong enough to take people's attention away from a set like Pokemon 151. Now, I'm not saying that Pokemon 151 is going to end the era as the best set. There may be a set that beats it, like the Team Rocket set. I do think that that is a good sign though for better sets in Scarlet and Violet if they do come out, that they can see similar huge upswings in prices. And so far 151 is clearly the winner of the Scarlet and Violet era. So that's number one. The number two thing that I wanted to talk about is that investing in Modern is extremely risky and Modern cards are extremely volatile. So if you are trying to make money off of investing in Modern cards, be prepared for the huge highs but also the huge lows. Look, this isn't really the first time that we've seen highly popular cards skyrocket in price, right? If you look at this Giratina from Lost Origin, for example, going from 360 about 6 months ago to 480 at the peak, and look at where it is now. It's actually lower than where it started in April of 2024 at about 326 at the bottom. It has recovered a little bit, but this really does show the volatility of investing in Modern cards. So despite the huge growth that we are seeing in the Charizard SIR and the like at the moment, if you really are thinking of spending your money in that, really do be prepared for both the highs and the lows. I do feel like we have seen or reached a high with this card. The reason why I say that is because, no offense to the card, no offense to Mickey Kudo, I think the artwork looks really good when you connect the three, but this Charizard as a standalone artwork, I would argue, isn't even the best Charizard SIR in the Scarlet and Violet era. So I do think that there is a huge risk that this goes down by a lot or continues to go up by a lot. It's just extremely volatile to invest in Modern cards. We see massive price swings that we haven't really seen in vintage singles since the whole base set hype. And of course, we do have recent history to teach us about that in the form of the Giratina V alt art. And one of the reasons why Modern is so volatile is because of just how much there is out there. So it might feel like these are very scarce at the moment, but if I just show you the pop report for the Charizard SIR on the screen right now, it's about 22,000 if I'm not mistaken. It's going to go up even higher. Obviously, there is some condition rarity that you can attribute to the card because it is quite hard to grade in a 10 compared to other cards, but still 22,000 available PSA graded copies. That's not counting for all the raw copies that are out there. With that much supply potentially being on the market, that's obviously going to lead to a greater potential for downswings. The third thing that I wanted to note is that because Pokemon cards are a collectible, don't always expect prices to move based on logic and rationality. So In the investing space, in investing in any type of thing, we like to have certain criteria that affect the value and popularity of a card. We think this is almost an objective set of criteria, you know, the population of a card, the quantity of it, the gem rate for a PSA 10, the amount of supply on the market, the demand on the market. None of those factors explained why the Charizard SIR jumped about 200 to 300 pounds in the space of a week. You know, if that happened over the course of 2-3 years, maybe that's like a more logical, rational, organic growth, but this really has absolutely come out of nowhere. But what I've learned is that looking at the alt arts and everything else, sometimes in this space, it just so happens that prices explode for no reason. Obviously, people covering it does heat it up a bit more, but as far as I'm aware, the growth in this Charizard SIR started before people started to cover it specifically. And that's totally fine because Pokemon cards are a collectible. The main thing that gives these things value is people's emotions over the cards. And what that means is when you're putting emotion into decisions, you might not always be making rational decisions. In my humble opinion, the only way to make sense of some of these price jumps is to accept the fact that it is a valid factor that not everything always makes sense in this Pokemon investing space. Personal opinion, I would much rather be buying a Gold Star PSA 7, PSA 8, a lower population card, a card with historical value. You could get like a good, you know, Jolteon, Alakazam in like an 8 for cheaper than this pop 22k Charizard PSA 10, but you're not. So that's why I'm also really interested to hear from you if you are buying these cards at the moment. The only thing that I can say as a closing statement is that Pokemon Scarlet and Violet 151 is proving its strength once again. It is by far the most popular set of the Scarlet and Violet era. Will we see sets top it up? You know, we've got Prismatic Evolutions coming out in January of 2025. We've got the Glory of Team Rocket coming out. A lot of people are pinning their hopes on that set being really good, including myself. It certainly looks like these set lists are getting better in Scarlet and Violet. So who knows, we might get more situations like this when we get even potentially better cards than this Charizard SIR. The only thing we can do is wait and see, but I hope this video has been helpful for you in trying to understand or decompose what has been happening in the market right now. I will be back next week with another video. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you do enjoy my content, and happy collecting.